I've grown up seeing many different charts that say the law of Moses is this one column, the law of God is this other column, and a lot of people say that everything other than the Ten Commandments have been abolished, which I would very respectfully disagree with. It is true that the Ten Commandments are special to some extent, because when you look at Exodus chapter 40, verse 20, we see that the Ten Commandments were placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. The other laws were placed outside. If you look in Exodus chapter 31, verse 8, or either verse 8 or 18, we see that the Ten Commandments were actually written by God. The other laws were written by Moses. But whether or not it's the law of Moses or the law of God, all of these laws were given by God himself. None of these laws were created by the Israelite people or by Moses. They were all given by God himself. All of that being said, I've heard many churches say that all the rest of the laws can be attributed or summarized in the Ten Commandments. That's actually not technically correct, because there are various commandments in the Old Testament that the New Testament does not nullify, but they are still very much applicable. And I like to draw some examples. Like, for example, in the Old Testament, God says a man should not wear a woman's clothing, neither shall a woman wear a man's clothing. Are we saying that that commandment is abolished? Do we believe that we should dress like transvestites as Christians? Absolutely not. But the world pushes this. And that's why there's gender confusion, because the world has abandoned one of these commandments. There are lots of commandments in the Old Testament where they may seem silly or foolish to us, but God actually had them there for a very practical, relevant, and specific reason. In the New Testament, Jesus himself gives lots of commandments also. I really dislike when I see lessons that say, oh, in the Old Testament there are 613 commandments. I think that's a very reductionist and childish way of looking at commandments, because in the New Testament there are many commandments Jesus gave as well. Are we going to number every single thing he said and said, well, Jesus gave 200 commandments, we shouldn't be keeping them? At the end of the day, every single thing that's in the scriptures were there for our learning. There's relevance for all of them. When we get to the book of Colossians specifies which laws are abolished. And the Bible is very clear. It's the laws that deal with the sacrificial system. Those are the ones that have been abolished. But every other law, there's definitely relevance and benefits that are attached to them. I don't know if anybody has answered this already. I did step out for a few seconds. But Torah in Hebrew means law or teaching or instruction or doctrine. And the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 15, verse 4, that everything was written aforetime was written for our learning. There are various things in the Bible which, if you were to be technical, they can't perfectly fit within the Ten Commandments. The Bible says you should rejoice with those that rejoice and weep with those that weep. Should we be doing this? Absolutely. But which of the Ten Commandments does that fall under? It doesn't fall under any of them. The Bible says that if somebody asks you to walk with them 1 mile, you should walk with them 2 miles. That's another commandment that Jesus gave. Is that one of the 10 commandments? It's not. So the way, in my opinion, that we should be looking at the Bible is that every single thing there, unless there is a verse that nullifies it or abolishes it, it's something that we should continue to keep. Regarding eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, I think that's another one that a lot of Christians have misunderstood over the ages. When Jesus came, the Bible says in Isaiah chapter 40 that Jesus came to magnify the law, so he didn't come to abolish it. However, that being said, when it comes to judicial systems, legal systems, that eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, that is very much relevant. But the point Jesus is making is that as Christians, we should not be quick to escalate problems with each other. We should be quick to forgive. We should be quick to overlook faults. We should be quick to reconcile. So that's the purpose of many of the guidance and teachings that Jesus gave. But in a judicial sense, in a legal sense, many of those civil laws, they absolutely 100% have complete practicality and relevance, and they should still be followed. There are some laws. I heard a statement earlier that the last 6 commandments are implemented by legal systems, that you would get in trouble with the law if you break them. That's actually not correct. There are some laws that, yes, our civil governments enforce, and there are other laws where it doesn't enforce. Stealing, yes, civil governments enforce that. Killing, absolutely, it enforces that. But if you cheat on your spouse, no governments care about that. Adultery is not against the law. Coveting is not against the law. Stealing might be, but coveting deals with what's inside your heart and your mind. The law, the civil governments don't have any laws against that. So when Jesus came to magnify the law, he came to give us a higher standard. That's why he said, you've heard in the past that it was said, you shall not murder. Yes, we shouldn't physically murder, but Jesus raises the standards. Should you not only kill person literally, but you should not hate them within your heart. So that's the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament gives you just like the foundation, the literal, the physical, but Jesus came to transform our lives. Don't just not have adultery with somebody else, but don't even lust after that person in your heart. So that's how we have the relationship between the old and the new. And I have a lot more to say, but I hope that summarizes some of the points that I wanted to